This is Our Side of Addiction, the podcast. I'm Amanda Bork. Let's go. I'm here. Amanda is here. Welcome in. How are y'all doing? We are going to be chatting about stepping back. When is it time for us, the loved ones, the family members of addicts, to step back? And this can be a touchy situation because maybe some of you think, never. I never step back. It's never time. We're going to talk about that. And you can feel like never because they're family or your loved one and they need help. I think at the end of this, you'll have better clarity on that because I would argue with you about that. With love, though. I know firsthand what it's like to feel like never, or to assume that you're bad if you do step back or even think about stepping back. With my sister Jenna, she was a heroin addict for over a decade, and then the last several years of her life she used fentanyl, which ultimately was what caused her death. I was heavily involved and invested in her and getting through to her, getting her into rehab, fixing the situation is really how I looked at it. I thought if I just got her into rehab, that I won. The problem would be over. I would have been successful. And at that point, I would have also been a good sister. Because that's the role of a good sister, isn't it? To fix their younger siblings' problems, to be there for them, to guide them, to show them the shortcuts. I bore that weight, bared that weight for a very long time, and I was convinced myself that this is the only way to be a good sister. That's how I defined it, was if I can make her problem go away at any cost, even the cost of myself. I was happy to give myself over to that situation if it meant that I could save her or fix this. To make it worse, our mother also was pressuring me to maintain that role, to fix it, to get through to her, to save, to rescue, to know what to do even. It was my role, according to our mother, which made it worse. All that happened was I extended myself way too far to the point of me actually getting sucked into my sister's darkness. Her darkness, her pain was now mine. And I absorbed her pain as though it were mine. I was in a very, not at all the darkest place I've ever been, but a very dark place. I experienced things very differently where I felt disassociated from my body and my life. I don't know if you can classify it as insomnia, but I was not sleeping, couldn't sleep, having nightmares, emotionally numb, to the point where I couldn't even hear sound. It wouldn't come into my head or felt very far and faded into the distance, even if it was close. It was a very strange experience. I wore myself to nothing. Absolute nothing. Every thought in my head all day long was for her or about her. My whole life was uprooted and relocated for her. And I was suffering in that life, thinking that it was the right thing to do. The only thing to do was to suffer while she was also suffering. My suffering was for her betterment. I believed that. It led nowhere, got zero results. And when I did step back from that situation, because I had an experience that led to a realization, I was shunned for doing that. Our mother demonized me for doing that and loved to remind me how bad I was for doing that. I abandoned her. I wasn't a good sister. I left. That's what I wanted. And she also reminded me that at my sister's damn funeral, just to make it even nicer. She loved to demonize me. I was always the black sheep. Like, I was always the target for the hate. But this situation was just more than I could bear. And I thought it was disgusting to say those things at my sister's funeral. That's another story. That just showcases who she is and her thought processes. And look, maybe you've done some of that. Maybe you're a parent and you think that their sibling kind of is in a really good position. The sibling can get insight that you can't as a parent. The sibling has a different relationship with them and maybe can get to them in a way that you could never. I understand that. But to expand on that, the sibling has an experience. And often what happens is the sibling gets overshadowed by the addict and feels worthless and useless and invisible. It's tricky and it's a dense subject matter in general when we're talking about loving an addict. There are a lot of parts and a lot of emotions. I got to this very low place because I didn't know there was an option to step back. Because I thought you weren't allowed to or you weren't supposed to step back. I didn't know that I was supposed to take care of myself during that situation or that I was even allowed to. Part of that is coming from a very dysfunctional childhood, yes. But I still did a lot of personal development work on myself after childhood. And I was very far from the person I was when I left my childhood. But I still didn't realize that I was supposed to care for myself. There is a line and there is a time to step back. There absolutely is. Which is why I want to present us with this conversation topic today. If you are like how I used to be or how I was with Jenna, it's not an option. You can't. Maybe demonizing a little bit. Great. I'm so glad you're here with us today. If you had no idea that it even is an option to care for yourself, that you are allowed to do that, so glad you're here also. And anyone else, maybe you already know that. Maybe for you, it's crazy that you never thought you could care for yourself during a crisis. Love that you're here as well because you got that advanced perspective on it that most of us are unable to or have not been privy to. Okay. I had my little story and let's get into this here. This line. Talk about this line of where love meets danger. You love them so much. You care for them so much. But doing so is putting you into danger. And that could mean, yes, physical danger could be, but it could also mean emotional, mental danger, psychological danger. There's different types of that. And it's confusing because where does love stop? At what point is that danger too much? It's personal decision, and we all have our lines in different spots. That's why some people are willing to put up with all kinds of crap from all kinds of people, and other people have zero tolerance from anyone. Our lines are going to be in different places, and we are allowed to have our lines in different places, okay? And never dictating where someone's line should or shouldn't be. I want us to gain a little perspective and insight onto where our line is, because if we don't establish it for ourselves, you'll just keep getting deeper and deeper into that danger without maybe realizing it, because every inch you move feels like it's necessary and might feel a little innocent because it's a little step. But before you know it, all those steps have accumulated into some depth. And I know you felt that when you're in that depth of danger. Your body is tense. Your adrenaline is rushing. You don't feel safe, or you're constantly panicked and anxious. Maybe you're overreacting, thinking I am overreacting, or feeling this intense experience in the body and recognizing that. Maybe you think you're being dramatic. Or it could be that you feel like you're abandoning them. We have these thoughts, and you might have all of those thoughts. You might feel like at one moment you're overextended into their drama or their darkness, and then you might feel like you're abandoning them an hour later. It's very confusing because it's so different. It's so polarizing within us. What tends to happen to us is our safety, or safety in general, gets minimized when we love an addict. Look, I was the older sister, and I, like, if she was still alive today, would be more than willing to face any kind of danger for her safety. I wouldn't even question it. Like, I would jump in front of a bullet for that girl. We love, and we love so deeply that we are happy to face danger for them. This can be admirable and good in certain contexts, because sometimes we do have to save our loved ones, yet we have this misunderstanding that addiction is this short burst rather than the realization that it's lifelong. We are taking short burst strategies for something that's long term. It's not sustainable. Any of these actions of saving or taking a bullet, take a bullet. Not take several bullets for the rest of my life. We don't conceptualize that. It's long-lasting, lifelong. And we really don't have any other strategies but these short-term. And because they get rolled out into long-term, it takes a toll on us, and it's not sustainable. It really isn't. Even for those of us who think there is no end point, there's no depth in which I wouldn't go, that's fine. But the deeper you go within that, the more effects you're going to feel on yourself. Whether that's physically, emotionally, mentally, and so forth, you're going to start getting chipped away at. Sometimes it's slow chips, sometimes it's a chop, but you're going to start feeling that within your own body and life too. Since we minimize our safety incrementally, each step gets normalized or rationalized. Danger keeps getting increased and we keep moving in that direction. And it's hard for us to wrap our heads around it or understand to what extent we're actually moving. And it can look like different things. It can look like minimizing verbal threats or rationalizing physical threats. Not only you, but everyone else who's involved. If we're in the household, who else is in that house? Are there children? Are there babies? Are there elderly family members in there? Who else is in there who's also being put at danger? Rationalizing reckless actions. My sister would get high, nod out, and crash cars. But somehow she continued to have access to cars. For me, I find that disgusting and appalling. That's my perspective of it. For other people, we might rationalize that. They need a car. They need to get to work. How are they supposed to get around? It's cold and winter. They need a car. They can't use the bus. They can't ride a bike. That's crazy. We're rationalizing reckless actions. It could also be incremental, but it doesn't have to be. Another way we're minimizing risk, minimizing our safety and the safety of others, ignoring our own fears. That could be our fears for ourselves, our life, fears for others, fears for strangers, and just straight ignoring that. I knew who kept giving my sister access to cars. They were rationalizing, yes, but also if they had any fears, were ignoring that. She could have killed herself or other people. I'm not sure how you rationalize that in your head. I don't know. I couldn't. But the people who were giving her access, they were able to do that in their minds. And also making excuses for aggressive behavior. This is a big one. Even if your loved one doesn't have any previous history of violence, addiction and drug use makes people violent. If you don't understand how violent, watch some shows, watch some documentaries, gain a little bit of a perspective, hear some stories from addicts' perspective. People, I don't want to get too crazy on here, but I heard this one story. I was watching a show about addiction. This girl, I think she was high on meth. I believe that was a substance. I think she was on a psych hold somewhere, high or coming down or something. And she bashed out her teeth. This voice in her head told her to do it, or it felt good to do it. Bashed out all of her teeth. They're not in their right minds. They're not conscious of the actions that they're doing. They're not the loved one that you know or remember. They're a different entity, or we can say that an entity has overtaken them. Otherwise, we're going to continue making excuses for this aggression or aggressive behavior under the guise that they would never do something to hurt you. They would never do that. It's not the case when we're talking about an addict and substances. We don't know what they're actually capable of. And I would sway on they're capable of the worst. Not them, your loved one. The addiction that's overtaken them is making them capable of anything. It distorts the person, and the more we engage in this environment with them, it distorts us, and it distorts our perspective of the environment. Where my sister Jenna was living, where she was accessing cars, there were also children in that house. Young children. And how old they were? 4, 5. Who were subjected to the danger and the violence and the substances, everything else that went along with that. The environment itself becomes very dangerous, and we might start to normalize this environment, particularly if the home has a history of being dysfunctional just in general. If we're already dysfunctional, a little more dysfunction, a little more reckless chaos, crazy crisis is not that hard to rationalize, is it? Because we're kind of already off the scale. Who cares if we're a little more off? Let's look at some warning signs that danger could be escalating. Like I said, we're taking those little incremental steps, not noticing or minimizing along the way, not actualizing that it's escalating. Let's look at some of those signs. Increased aggression and volatility, definitely. I didn't see the true depth of Jenna's aggression and violence because I wasn't at the same location as her. I was living away from her. But I heard stories, I saw videos, and it almost made me feel like I didn't believe it. Even though I saw a video of the way she was acting, I had a hard time believing that was her, because the person in the video was the polar opposite of the person in my head, the person in my memories. And it was very hard to absorb, so much so that my brain preferred to reject the realities of the video. I didn't want to believe it, even though I saw it with my own eyes. And I heard the stories. Even hearing the stories, that's easier to push away. The increased aggression. I saw a little bit of that with my sister once. It was in a car. Our mother and I, we tried to do this mild kidnap. Not really a kidnap plan, but definitely a trickery change of location plan. Okay. I admit to nothing. And I saw her get violent and aggressive to the point where I got scared, because that was the moment that I realized this was far beyond me. I am up against an absolute demon, and I have no way to slay it. I was really scared when I saw that, because I realized a lot of things in that moment. But I saw her punching and flailing and screaming. Felt like an exorcism was occurring. And even seeing a small bit of her aggression, though I was scared and I came to some realizations in that moment, it still felt very out of body type of an experience. Like, am I having a nightmare? It's very easy to disassociate from those moments and excuse them away. But when you're seeing these changes of volatility, aggression, even threats of aggression, A threat is not to be taken lightly, but we can often just chalk it up to something else or disassociate from it. Even if the threats are implied, any kind of threat. Destruction of property is another one, that things are escalating. Because, like I said, I saw my sister punch a dashboard several times and kick several times, like thrashing around in the front seat of a car. Any kind of destruction of property. I've heard stories, seen video, my sister punching holes in the wall, kicking, destroying doors, like taking doors off. Crazy activity. Any kind of destruction of property. And we're not excusing this behavior. They were high, they got upset, whatever the circumstances are, we're not excusing it. Of course, reckless behavior, fire, weapons, vehicles, bringing back Jenna and her car, that is absolutely reckless behavior. And we aren't going to minimize this types of behavior because it is putting us or others at risk. If they're ignoring our boundaries, that's escalation of behavior safety zones that we're crossing here. They have zero respect and they're going to continue to push these boundaries. That's escalating behavior. Some emotional red flags. Let's think about that one for a second. Maybe we are afraid to speak openly and honestly with them. If we are walking on eggshells, we are being very delicate because we don't want to set them off. That's a huge blaring alarm. It's escalating, y'all. If we're altering our behavior to avoid explosions on their end, that's a problem. That means they can't control or regulate themselves. And that means that your safety is at risk. You're also afraid of what's going to happen if you say no to them. If they ask you for money and you say no, are they going to threaten you with physical harm? Are they going to punch a hole in the wall right next to your head to intimidate you? Are they going to slash your tires? These are all things that we're going to stop ignoring or minimizing, and we're going to start highlighting. We're going to sit in this discomfort of what's actually occurring. So they're not being passive or trying to be passive in their addiction. Other factors, safety issue factors, these are going to be substance related, and we're not always going to know these factors or feel them. You mostly might not. If they're mixing substances, experimenting with new ones, something of that nature. If there's paranoia or psychosis, they're experiencing severe withdrawal symptoms. My sister Jenna, she came to detox just straight cold twice at my house. That was such a horrible experience. Please don't ever do that. You don't want to see that. And she became very mean and very aggressive during that experience toward me. And I did feel afraid in my house because I realized that this was not my sister and this was a stranger. And because this was a stranger in my house, they are capable of anything. That is a very scary situation and place to be. And these extreme withdrawal symptoms cause violence and aggression and just an overall meanness. They are experiencing a lot of pain, but there is a fear factor involved with them having these withdrawals. And you'll see if your loved one has ever come around to you begging for money while they're detoxing. Obviously, it's not something they want to be doing, and they need money to get high again so they don't feel the detox. You know how nasty and mean they can be, how aggressive they can be. And they are happy to threaten your life if that means getting money so that they can alleviate their pain and their symptoms. They will do that, happy to do that. Again, not talking about your loved one in your heart, in your memory. We are talking about the addict that has assumed your loved one. Our bodies will be able to recognize danger before our minds do. You'll feel it. Your heart will beat very fast. You might start getting sweaty or feeling clammy. Your gut might start tingling. Your skin could even tingle. Your body will sense fear or danger and give you those signals. Your mind, because it's your loved one, your mind will be more likely to rationalize, minimize, ignore, disassociate from. We want to really tune into what our body is saying. That's going to help us recognize when the danger is escalating or we're getting to this point of too far deep. What is our body saying to us? I want us just to, don't worry about what your head's saying or your heart. What's the signal from my body? How often do I feel fear around them? Or if thinking about them is invoking physical danger, fear. Emotional boundaries versus physical boundaries. Let's look at this for a moment. Not all boundaries are the same, and let's highlight the differences here. I'm always an advocate for boundaries. Y'all know I talk about it. Y'all are annoyed by it. I'm going to keep saying it until you're a master at it. Boundaries are an asset to us. Boundaries are going to help safeguard and protect us. I've said this before. Think of boundaries as your shield. It's your protector. Our emotional boundaries are going to safeguard or help to safeguard our mental health and emotional state as well. Some examples could be limiting emotional caretaking, that catering to them, their emotional state, their responses, refusing verbal abuse. That's a good emotional boundary. You're not going to speak to me that way. You're not going to talk down to me. You're not going to use that type of language with me. Could also be ending conversations when it starts escalating. If an addict wants something from you, they will invoke manipulation tactics. And they have a wide array of tools in their emotional manipulation toolbox. And you will see how quickly they switch from tactics, aggression to crying in an instant. That's how you know it's fake and they're just implementing a strategy or getting a little desperate. If you can switch strategies super quick like that, big sign it's a fake. It's a fraud. When they start, say for example, it's don't speak to me with foul language. they'll start off nice and sweet, especially if they want something, and they might beg you or use some kind of trigger words. My sister had a very weird relationship with her father, and when she was using this strategy, she would say, "Daddy, please, Daddy. Oh, please, can you come here, Daddy? I need you, Daddy." Like, that was her manipulation tactic. Sometimes they'll use those words or get like all pity and sweet and act all innocent and hurt and weak and in danger. And then they can also immediately switch. If that doesn't work, that sweet talk, and you maintain your boundary, they're very easy to switch to threatening your life or physically attempting to harm you to get whatever they're trying to get. If you see any changes, whether that's manipulation, tactic changes, or escalation of behavior, they start posturing aggressively, red flag, okay? Throwing red flag on the field on that. We need to recognize these changes instead of minimizing them, removing ourselves from the situation. You don't deserve to be spoken to like that or threatened or manipulated even. Our boundary could very well be, if this starts changing tone, the second the tone changes, could even be the voice changing, eyes changing. Those, when you see someone shift their eyes to, I call them danger eyes, where they start looking aggressive in the eyes. That's it. End of conversation. We're done. Those were some examples of emotional boundaries. Let's take a look at physical boundaries. This is how we're going to protect our bodies. Yes, there's some overlap, but I want to make sure we have some distinction between the two. Some examples of these types of boundaries could be creating physical distance, like if that's stepping back or walking away. Great strategy. Are they closing in on the distance though? Closing the gap? That's scary. So how can we create that physical distance? Maybe we need to drive away or start running away, whatever it is. It might sound dramatic, like, oh, I'm supposed to turn and run away. Like, it's crazy. As far as an addict is concerned, they're unpredictable and they are capable of physical harm no matter who you are to them. I want us to assume the worst in this aspect of safety. They are capable. If that chick I told you about is capable of bashing her own teeth out, all her teeth, they're capable of anything to anyone, okay? Creating that physical distance. It could also be altering our living arrangements. I work with clients. I work with the loved ones of addicts. I don't ever advocate for addicts living in your house, ever. Some people refuse that, that's fine. You're allowed to refuse that. I don't ever advocate or agree with that. An addict should never, ever be sharing your home, period. If we are sharing home, changing that arrangement, that's a physical boundary, could be for you. Could also be whatever. Leaving kind of ties into physical distance, not always, because if you're getting up in my face, maybe I just take a few steps back to maintain space. But leaving the environment could be you saying this is getting out of hand and leaving, driving away, running away. Okay. Maybe that also means including some outside support. Getting an interventionist, having some kind of group therapy situation? Is your addict willing to participate in therapy or counseling? Can we get a mediator? Could even be a family friend or a family member that's a little distant from the situation to mediate. Those are some examples of the physical boundaries. These are to keep us physically safe, to minimize any kind of threat, both the emotional and physical, to make sure that we're safe and any kind of danger potential is mitigated as best as possible. And this is going to feel wrong. You're going to feel very bad about doing any of this. Why is that, Amanda? Why do I feel like the worst person on earth for creating boundaries or distance from my loved one, for being unwilling to put myself in continued danger? Why does it feel like I'm failing them or abandoning them? Could be we're bonded via trauma. Call that trauma bonding. My sister and I, we grew up in an abusive home, and we were trauma bonded. Many a night, particularly when the abuse was bad, we often shared a room. We would share a bed, so we would both get into whoever's bed. Like, we each had our own bed, but she would jump into mine or I would jump into her bed. And we would comfort each other while we cried. And we would take turns. I would cry. She would play with my hair, rub my back. And then she would cry maybe the next night. And I would play with her hair and rub her back. We were each other's saviors through that abuse and that awful childhood experience. And we helped each other survive that experience just in general. So we were very bonded via the trauma that we experienced. And because of that, there is this very unique relationship dynamic between the two of you, because essentially you went through war together, similar to soldiers. Why do you think that they view each other as brothers and sisters? Some sisters or girls are in the ladies in the military now, but that is your family. That bond is so tight because their lives were threatened continuously, and they supported each other through that battle. And they faced a lot. They saw a lot together. Creates this unique bond. And when we have these bonds with each other, how dare you leave me in my hardships? That's how they feel. And that's also how you feel. I can't leave them. Like, we went to war together, and I'm about to leave them now? Are you crazy? No way. That's what we do. We go to war together and we save one another. We support one another. When you are essentially, quote unquote, breaking that trauma bond with them, it feels like you're the worst person in the world. You are turning your back on them. You're an awful person for doing that, leaving someone who's wounded. No one does that. What kind of a person are you? It feels more intense than if you weren't bonded via that trauma. Another reason this feels so awful is there is a fear of consequence. When we love an addict, the ultimate consequence is them dying. And we constantly fear them dying. The worst thing that could ever happen to you in your life is right there being dangled in front of your face every minute of every day. If you step back, that consequence becomes more real, more viable. And it's also in our heads, we're going to have this image of if they do die, it was because I stepped back. We're going to put that weight on ourselves if it ever happens. We could also feel overly responsible for them in whatever context. Parents, siblings, you're going to feel it's your duty to care for them because of your role, your relationship. You're supposed to, ... And also social messaging. I hate this so much. This rhetoric that you hear everywhere. Love is pain. Love is sacrifice. Love is endurance. There's no end in love. Like, I call bullshit on all of that. I will end anything at any moment if you act up. That doesn't mean I love you less or I'm less down for you. Act up and you're gone. Threaten my life, threaten my future, attempt to undo all that I've done. Bye. But it's so weird with my sister. There was no end. Different. We had a trauma bond. I couldn't leave my war soldier behind. But this message that is out there, particularly for the family, the number one question people ask is, where's the family? There was something that happened online about a former Nickelodeon child star. What was his name? Tyler Chase. Former child star of Nickelodeon, turned out to be living currently on the streets, mental health issues, he's an addict. Someone found him, took a video of him, and it just blew up online. And by the way, I hate when people make videos like that, putting cameras in the face of homeless people or addicts. I just find it disgusting to highlight people's worst moments of their life and showcase that to the world. It's so just classless and tasteless. Anyways, if you do that, not cool, bro. Like, not cool. People were putting cameras in his face and putting him online, and he's a mess. Like, lives on the street, a mess. And I am nosy, and I went to the comment section just to see what's up in the comments. So many comments. Where's his family? His family stole his money. His family left him on the streets. His family doesn't care. And this kind of talk. And we're talking about a 40-year-old man, by the way. Okay? A 40-year-old. Gosh, try to get a 5-year-old to do something because you said so. Then try to do that with a 40-year-old. Do it because I said so. And then on top of that, add addiction. And then on top of that, add mental health disorder. And then try to get them to do something. It's very frustrating that the rhetoric from society in general is the family is to blame. It's the family's fault, and it's also the family's responsibility to fix it. More to that story is a former coworker that was on a show with Tyler tracked him down, also put this all on the internet, which is disgusting as well. Because if you're doing a good deed for someone, you don't need reward and you shouldn't be publicizing it. It also adds to my rant. He tracked down Tyler and with the hopes of helping him, decides to try to get him into rehab. In the meantime, puts him up in a motel till they can get it all sorted. Why are you putting that on the internet? Psh, I don't know, but it was. Day later, the owner of the motel calls the friend, the former coworker, and says the room is trashed. It was like, I think the microwave or the TV was in the tub, door wide open, stuff everywhere, stuff broken. Like, I think it's funny because people come in wanting to assume the role of a hero. You need your glory for whatever reason. And they think they have the answer. Like, you don't think the family tried getting him into rehab or tried putting him in a motel? You don't think those were the first things the family tried? This has been going on for years. You think that's a new idea? Or you're going to be different? He came out to say that the family did try to warn him of everything they tried and nothing worked. I guess the coworker tried to get him into some kind of treatment and he just pulled out a crack pipe in the middle of a some kind of therapy session. I'm laughing at this because it's so funny that people are really quick to blame the family and to think the family is responsible. The family is supposed to have the answers or be the savior or fix addiction. And then they think, oh, the family didn't do justice. Let me swoop in. And they get the same results. It's not going to work unless the person wants to change. If the person doesn't want change, there's literally nothing you can do for them. Nothing. You have to allow them to keep living their lives the way they choose. And that ties in to why it feels wrong to back away from our loved ones. Yes, society is blaming us too. Society thinks it's our duty to fix, solve, make go away. But it's also our duty, if we love them, to endure anything and everything forever. At no point are we allowed to step back, according to society, if we actually love them. I will never agree with that, and I want us to start realizing that we are not going to be putting ourselves in danger for the sake of quote unquote love. Addicts don't, when they're in addiction, they don't even like themselves, let alone love. They don't like themselves. There's zero capacity for them to love you. But you're supposed to take anything and everything from them. No, we're not doing that. We're not putting ourselves in danger, and we're not classifying this under love endures all. It does not. That's a lie. Who started that? We need a meeting with them. If you know who started that, email me. Get me a meeting with them. What we know about this type of behavior and staying in these types of environments. Because I'm sure, oh yeah, right. Would you tell someone who's being abused to stay for love? Like physically beaten and punched, stay, it's love. No, you wouldn't. What we know is the more we allow ourselves to stay in these unsafe environments, loving an addict, if we're in close proximity to them, equates to unsafe. It erodes our judgment. It puts our health and safety at risk. It also changes our identity. You're going to do things you would never normally do. It's going to alter us. Us stepping back does not create or cause any kind of crisis. It's a response to what's there. How do we do this in a safe manner? We want to make sure we're being intentional and safe. We don't have to be dramatic. We just want to be practical. Is there a safe place that we can go or they can go? If that's part of the issue. Making sure any kind of documents that are important aren't accessible. Like, we're not leaving our bank documents out and about, our credit cards out and about. Well, there's an addict, whoever they're bringing into your home, in and out. Any other types of important documents, we're not leaving those around. Your will, your mortgage, whatever it is, your deeds, you're not leaving it around. Even your car title. I would be very wary of the car title, okay? Like making sure they're out of sight, but also you have access to them. Making sure that. Do you have any particular plans? If you have a plan of action, does anyone else know about it? It might be good to let at least one other person know about what your action plan is. We don't need to announce our plans, particularly during conflict. That's going to spike emotion even more. Because no matter when you present it, there's going to be an emotional response. It's best to present it when our emotions aren't already peaking. Sometimes stepping back is out of emergency, but not always. And we want to make sure if it's not an urgent emergency, we're just timing things. What I did with Jenna is when I came to the realization that I did need to step back for my safety, my mental health, my life, I wrote her, I sent it on Facebook. I wrote her a message on Facebook. I took my time and I wrote a very nice and compassionate but strong, stern message to her. I told her I couldn't do it anymore. I tried everything I could possibly think or was capable of doing. Nothing worked. And I wanted her to find her way. I just hoped that she would get help and get sober. And I wanted us in the future to come back together as adult women who were healthy and could restart a relationship. That's all I said. And that I loved her. She was pissed. She was pissed. The moment she read that message, whoo, she wrote messages back. She left voicemail. She was aggressive. Super aggressive. Which is weird because she never actually cared about the relationship because she was under the identity of an addict. She never showed me love, never said thank you, very happy to drain any resources or any leverage she had. She just used me. That's all she did. Actively, knowingly used me. And the only reason why she thrashed was not because she loved me and she would miss me. It was because she lost resources. She lost an asset. That was why she was angry. Not for me. But they will respond very strongly to whatever changes you're making, especially if you're declaring that you're going to take a few steps back. Anticipate that. Do we need to do it in person? Up to you. But there will be aggression that follows that. This is part of why I did it in a letter form or message because she could have it for her records. She could reread it. And I said everything I wanted to say. And I slowly wrote that so I could be very thoughtful and intentional. And I just kept reading it before I sent it, making sure it was good. She couldn't interrupt me. She couldn't intimidate me, raise her voice, or threaten me. She just had to take it. Letters are really good. I tend to recommend something written. And if it's a paper letter, they can just rip it up. But if it's, of course, they could delete a message, written or email message. I like the digital because the paper can also get lost, or they might rip it up in a fit of rage and not even read it. So, yes, we want to make sure we're timing it. It's not always going to be urgent. Us creating safety for ourselves is going to help bring clarity to us. It's going to help us process the situation because maybe we just need to recalibrate. Look, nothing I'm doing has worked. I am running around in circles. Nothing I say matters. Nothing gets through to them. I need to step back and analyze the situation, analyze my actions, and figure out another way to approach this. Could just be you need to step back for some clarity reasons. Whatever reasons you need, it creates more calm, more quiet, and you are able to make better decisions when we're less interwoven with the situation. Our journey loving an addict is supposed to be supportive. We are supposed to have the support system of others to navigate this. Addicts have support systems. They have sponsors. They have meetings all across the world, online, in person. They have sober events. They have treatment centers. There are a ton of resources for addicts. A ton. Where are our resources? Where are our events? Where are our communities? It's difficult because it can feel as though we don't have a journey, but we do. We absolutely have a journey and we need to be supported. Could be through a therapist, could be through support groups, could be through maybe hotlines or advocacy services. We have to be supported too. Maybe your friends, your spouse. Making sure that we have our safe spaces to help us navigate our journey. When we lessen the high-risk situations, we are able to refocus our energy back onto ourselves and our journey in this. If I'm so caught up in the addict side and their dilemmas, their shadow, and I'm being eclipsed by them, there's zero opportunity for me to process on my journey in this. It's very easy to get lost in their suffering, and you will never go through your journey of loving an addict as long as you're lost in their suffering because you have no energy for it. When we reduce those situations and are not putting ourselves in so much risk, not overextended onto their side, we can have a faster recovery response to the trauma. We can have better emotional regulation. Of course, there's less risk for physical harm as well. It's about protecting ourselves in this long term experience. What are some barriers that we might face? Misconceptions. It's not bad enough yet. It's not bad enough for me to step back. It's not that dangerous. They're not that violent. They've only punched a hole in the wall next to my head. They never punched my head. It sounds a little silly, but we rationalize that. Just so you know, danger is not going to be announced before it's presented. Your loved one is not going to tell you, hey, tomorrow, 3 p.m., I'm going to bash your face in. Just so you know. It's going to happen out of nowhere, and your loved one didn't plan it. It's also going to happen out of nowhere from their side. It's unpredictable. You have no way of knowing if it's coming, when it's coming. As soon as their energy is escalating into those red flag zones, as soon as your body is giving you those physiological signs of fear that we already discussed, as soon as you feel extended, worn down, overwhelmed, you can feel it in your body that you're overextended, or you're getting lost in their shadow, or you're being overly consumed by them and their life and their choices. Those are the moments when it is bad enough, where we need to step back and recalibrate, realign, reassess boundaries, reassess our approach, the situation, what's going to happen in the future. Just because addiction exists in your family member, that's bad enough. That's enough on its own. Another one is, they didn't mean it. We can diminish things that they said or did or threatened. They were just upset. They were just high. They were just ... We are going to stop minimizing right now. The more we minimize addiction, the stronger it becomes. The more solidified within our loved one it gets. We're going to stop acting like we are allowed to be passive when our loved one has an addiction. There's no passive here. It also doesn't negate the impact. Whatever was said or done, there's an impact to it. If there are children in the house, like with Jenna's situation, those children are impacted by whatever's happening. And you're going to negate that? Not fair to those kids or whoever else is around. Not fair to you either, who's experiencing it. The next one, I should be able to handle this. I hate this one because this is so real. If you're strong, if you're good, if you're whatever, you should be able to handle it. You should be able to absorb it. You should be able to manage them. It's putting all this responsibility on us, and this responsibility is not ours. Never has been and never will be. You could convince yourself or try to convince yourself all day long, not going to change the fact that it's not your responsibility. I wish it worked like that. I wish we could take their responsibility, absorb it, handle the task, and then give the glory back to them. We can't, though. And you're not supposed to just handle it or absorb it. And that's not love. It'll never be for the sake of love either. And the last one I have here for barriers slash misconceptions. If I leave, I'm abandoning them. This abandonment narrative or rhetoric, it feels like we're leaving them in their time of need. It feels like we're leaving our buddy or our loved one in a war zone, wounded on the ground, and just running away from them. Like that saying, you never leave a man behind. We feel like we're leaving a man behind. You don't do that. Us preserving our safety does not equate to abandoning them. I would argue they abandoned you long before. If we're going to look at it under those contexts, them in their addiction, them not showing you love, not reciprocating in your relationship, putting you at risk, putting you in threat, in danger, draining your finances, draining your emotions. You don't think that's abandonment? If we're doing that tit for tat, they did it first. Us distancing ourselves keeps us safe and also is an opportunity for us to have some clarity and establish what our next moves are or aren't going to be. Your number one job in life is to maintain your life. That's your number one job. Your body will shut off your mind and do what it needs to do to keep itself safe. I remember I was borrowing a friend's car, and because my car, somebody hit me. You know, you're in limbo before you get another car because I wasn't decided. So I borrowed her car. She put tires on it. I think just the 2 back tires, or was it all 4? I couldn't remember. And, you know, when you get brand new tires, you're supposed to be careful when you drive. For some reason, I wasn't. On the highway, not being careful, and it had rained just a little, or was starting to rain, so the road was a little slick. I lost control of the car. It started weaving, and my mind just said, fuck it, and I took my hands off the steering wheel, and I put them in my lap, because I was like, fuck it, let's just crash. I don't know what. That's what I did. And then my body took over. Next thing I know, I was steering out of this, because I lost control. I was steering out of it, came to a stop at the side of the road. I got lucky because I was on the 4-lane highway and there was nobody near me on either side of me because I was everywhere skidding. My body took control of that situation because my body is programmed to survive and do what it needs to do to maintain life. Us doing what we're biologically programmed to do, maintain our life, does not equate to abandonment of others. It doesn't. It feels like it, but it is not what you're actually doing. Your mind is just playing tricks on you in this situation. You're making yourself miserable, and you might even be abusing yourself to try to punish yourself in some way. That happens. Love does not require self-destruction. It's not an element of love. Never has been. Some of us were programmed as children to believe that love is destruction. Love is extreme sacrifice of self. Love is self-abandonment. Love is suffer. Love is pain. if you were programmed to believe that as a child, it's because it was a dysfunctional home, not because that's how it's supposed to be. You were just programmed to believe that and act like that. You were programmed to be dysfunctional. It can be very challenging to evolve past that, because when we've been programmed as children, it's deep within our psyche to remain like that, because that's what we were taught. However, we might be perpetuating that with our loved one who has an addiction, and thinking that we have to be self-destructive in some way, self-sacrificing, putting ourselves in danger for the sake of them or love. But love has limits. It has to have limits. And even though we love our addicts deeply, our love has to have a limit. It doesn't prove that we're compassionate by putting ourselves in danger, overextending into their life, their suffering. And we aren't ever obligated to endure harm for the sake of loyalty. That whole ride or die nonsense? No. Not me. Catch me with that one. Bye. You're on your own. Sometimes there's a little bit of trickery involved in manipulation, where people are taught to believe that loyalty involves some kind of endurance of pain and suffering. Us having boundaries with love is an expression of self-respect, yes, but also balance and safety. When we affirm or prioritize our safety, it is not about abandoning the other person. It's not giving up. It's not betraying. It's not selfish. It's you acknowledging that this is not the best place for you. This is not safe for you. This is not conducive with what you desire. You're allowed to survive. Imagine that. You're allowed to be alive and survive. You're allowed to choose your life. And you're also allowed to heal and process from the experience of loving an addict. This could mean, by stepping back, that you have clearer thinking, you have reduced anxiety, you're able to reconnect with yourself, because we feel when we overextend into our addicts, we lose ourselves. I always envision it as I get pixelated and fuzzy when I overextended into Jenna. I no longer had my identity or my life. I was pixelated into her and her darkness. When we step back and pull back, we can reconnect with ourselves. What do I want? What do I need? What makes me feel safe and calm? How can I re-engage with my loved one in manners that also keep me safe and calm? Is it possible? How can I do it? Gives us that opportunity to reflect. And also asserting our boundaries, making sure they're communicated, they're clear for other people and for us. We're withholding our boundaries as well, and we're moving forward in conjunction or in alignment with our boundaries. Sometimes our relationships with our addicts are repaired. Sometimes they're not. We have no way of dictating that. I often think that it's just not up to us to decide. certainly not solely our decision. We're in a relationship with anyone, they partake 50%. If they're not going to participate, doesn't matter what you do. They will never participate. You can never give 90% and they only give 10. Doesn't work. Not sustainable. The safety gives us an opportunity to heal ourselves. Once we heal ourselves, then we can rejoin our loved one. Never before, though. Let's put a bow, wrap it up. Silk wrapping today. I see people wrap Christmas presents in silk and ribbon. That's what I'm giving y'all today. Silk. Paisley patterned silk. Blue with gold, okay? When we love an addict, it trains us to disassociate with versions of the situation or versions of ourselves and even them. So much so that we keep edging deeper and deeper into danger, and we pixelate ourselves into them. This fear that we're experiencing physiologically is feedback from our bodies. That part of us that is programmed to maintain and sustain life is telling you it's in danger. It feels threatened. It's giving you the opportunity to respond and sustain life. And focusing on this response helps us navigate whether or not we are in danger. You're going to feel it in your body. Even if our mind is rejecting it, hyperfixate on your body, how it feels, and making sure we validate that through corrective action, because your life matters. If you completely lose yourself into your loved one, who's going to support them? Who's going to care for them? Who's going to encourage them to go to rehab? Or be clapping at the day they graduate from rehab? Who's going to drive them to their first job interview? They need you healthy and safe and stable so that you can be there for them in supportive manners. Pixelating ourselves into them is not serving of them. I mean, of course, not serving of you, but 100% we are not being serving of our loved ones. It's not cruel, but it's protective, and it's loving ourselves. With that, that's all I have for you today. Thanks so much for being here. If I ruffled your feathers, I meant to do it, and you're welcome. I'll catch y'all in the next episode. Ciao.